following is a production of Cary TV, the Town of Cary's government access channel.
Call to order the October 13th meeting of the Cary Town Council. And at this time, I'll call on colleague Jack Smith for our ceremonial opening. Mr. Smith.
Thank you, Mayor. Would you all join us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First order of business is to adopt the agenda. I would entertain a motion to do so.
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Discussion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. We're now at item 2, recognitions and reports. And before we move to our first item, I would like to recognize Boy Scout Troop 200, who is in our audience tonight. Would you please stand up and be recognized? They're working on their citizenship in the community merit badge. Thank you for being here. We now move to item number 1, which is the presentation of Cybersecurity Month proclamation. I'll turn it over to Councilmember Lori Bush for this item.
Make my way. Which one? It's your turn.
Move
get
to
to
your
choose.
left, please.
Really make them
Anyone you want.
flip, right? So it's always-
The guys up there are doing this.
I know, don't you think that's great? Well, it's October. And you know what that is? Jack, you know what it is? Cybersecurity Awareness Month. So the last 4 years, I've made it my mission to try to get everyone in the town of Cary, especially my fellow council members, to be cybersecurity aware. Over the last 4 years, I've told you what to do, what not to do on the web, what websites to go to, Jack, what websites to not go to. And I've also noticed that you guys have actually learned over the last 4 years. So this time, I thought I'd spend some time telling you about what the town of Cary has done over this last year. As you may know, and many others may know, that I was one of the founders in the group for the National Cybersecurity Alliance, which is now called Stay Safe Online. And you can go to staysafeonline.org to learn more about cybersecurity for yourself, for your family, or for your business. And first off, why is this important? Well, it's because each of us has a device now, 1, 2, maybe 5, that are connected to the internet. And when we're connected to the internet, shockingly enough, we're actually connected to a lot more than just our own information, but to everybody else's information. And it's important because the internet runs so much today that's part of our daily lives. The internet runs our water systems, runs our electrical grids, and we need to keep that information, including our information about our banks and certainly about our emails, somewhat closed to the rest of the world. Except, of course, if you're at the town of Cary, because you know that all of our town email goes to the press every Friday. So when you're when and if your identity is stolen, it's important that your information be kept confidential, especially your healthcare and banking information. And it's also important that we all understand the criticality of being safe, because just like public safety, as the mayor says constantly, safety is a shared responsibility, and cybersecurity is that same shared responsibility. So this year, let me tell you what the town is doing to increase cybersecurity awareness. Well, if you've called the town lately and been put on hold, you could hear the lovely default music. But now the town has done something exciting, and seasonally we changed the information. We hope you're not put on hold, but if you are, you actually get some relevant information. And this year, on October, you're actually getting information about how to be cyber aware. Also, we have a swap spot that the police department has put in place. So if you're selling something on Craigslist and you want to have a nice, safe place to go to exchange your goods and services, you can come to the Town of Cary Police Department. We also have the very famous Cary Cyber Tips page, where you can learn information about how to be cyber aware. There'll be some new social media posts coming. They'll be sharing a really cool infographic on how to be cyber aware that's from the Stay Safe Online folks. And I understand that internally there's new training that's going to be delivered to make sure that all our town employees are also staying safe as well. Let me read the proclamation and invite Mr. Larry Black up from our IT department. Oh, look, there's the one that I don't need my glasses for. So designating October 2016 as Cybersecurity Awareness Month in Cary, whereas technology plays a vital role in our daily lives and in the future of our town, state, and nation, the Internet provides a simple mechanism for our citizens, schools, libraries, and businesses to perform a variety of tasks, including keeping in touch with family and friends, managing our personal finances, performing research, enhancing education, and conducting business. And additionally, businesses and service providers are increasingly reliant on information systems to support financial services, energy, telecommunication, transportation, utilities, healthcare, and emergency response systems. Whereas Internet users and our information infrastructure face an increasing threat of malicious cyber attack, loss of privacy from spyware and malware, and significant financial and personal privacy losses due to identity theft and fraud. Whereas there are numerous national initiatives that provide education about cybersecurity, the Stop, Think, Connect campaign from Stay Safe Online and StopThinkConnect.org uses a common sense approach to help all digital citizens stay safe. You can stop before you use the Internet, think and take a moment to be certain that the path ahead is clear, and connect and enjoy the Internet with greater confidence, knowing that you've taken the right steps to safeguard your identity, yourself, and your computer. Whereas April 2007, the Cary Town Council took proactive steps to increase cybersecurity and citizen awareness of these threats by establishing a computer-related crime activity unit in the police department. And today, the town's cybercrime unit is the only full-time unit in Wake County. It employs 3 full-time and 2 part-time staff who work diligently to protect our citizens' cyber safety and well-being. And they also routinely assist other local, state, and federal agencies with cybercrime-related cases. In this past year, these detectives have been assigned over 50 cases. The police department also maintains a webpage at thetownofcary.org that contains guidelines and resources to help all of us keep our families and our children safe online. And whereas the town staff and officials understand that Internet security is a shared responsibility in which everyone has a critical role to play, raising awareness of cyberspace security is not only our employees, but also in our community's best interest, and will help protect the town's information infrastructure and our citizens. And now, therefore, Lori Bush, on behalf of the entire Cary Town Council, on behalf of all of us, we are pleased to partner with the United States Department of Homeland Security, the Multi-State Information Sharing and Analysis Center, the National Association of State Chief Information Officers, and the National Cybersecurity Alliance to declare October National Cybersecurity Awareness Month in Cary. And I urge all of our Cary residents to go to the townofcary.org webpage to learn about cybersecurity and make sure that they put this knowledge into practice in their homes, schools, workplaces, and businesses.
Mr. Mayor, council members, Mr. Takal. On behalf of the Technology Services Department, I'd like to thank you for proclaiming October Cybersecurity Month in Cary, North Carolina. This month also marks the 13th National Cybersecurity Month, which began in 2004. We appreciate the support that you have given in order to protect not only our employees, but also the citizens of Cary with this important initiative. Thank you again.
Thank you, Mr. Billette. Our second item under recognitions and reports is the town manager update. We'll recognize Town Manager Stiegel for this update.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council. Two items I'd like to highlight from the past week. Both were provided examples of where the citizens and the town partnered together. First, good news on the gold medal award that was where our Parks and Recreation, Parks Culture, what is it? Parks Culture, yeah, Culture, Parks, Recreation. It's a long acronym. It takes to be that long. In partnership with the rest of the town, including our citizens, were awarded the Gold Medal Award, which is the highest distinction in that field. And it's important to note that without the citizens supporting financially and through their use our facilities, and without the other town departments supporting the Parks and Culture and Recreation Department, sorry, Doug, I'll get it at some point, none of this would have been possible. So I think it's a really good example of kind of a one Cary type of concept. The other one Cary example through the week, unfortunately not so good, was as a result of the hurricane. And I saw many examples, as I'm sure you did, of citizens helping citizens remove debris, help each other out during very difficult circumstances. What I was able to see internally were a group of very competent and determined and very calm and cool professionals. Obviously that wasn't me, as it related to the resolving of the hurricane effects, and seeing the staff and how they approached it and just how methodical and effective they were with dealing with the hurricane was very impressive, and the citizens served them well, but again in partnership with the community.
Thank you, Mr. Siegel.
Thank you.
We now move to our third item, which is Public Speaks Out. We've included instructions for speaking at Public Speaks Out on the printed agenda. And if you'd like to speak, I'd ask that you take a seat in the rows to my right that are marked as reserved and follow the instructions on the agenda. Public Speaks Out speakers have 3 minutes each for their comments, and speakers may speak on any topic as long as it's not a public hearing. There's a 3-minute time limit, and to be fair to all of our speakers, I will strictly enforce the 3-minute time limit. There's a timer located on the podium. Starts off with a green light. When the green light turns to a yellow light, it means you have 30 seconds remaining. When the yellow light turns into a flashing red light, it means your time has expired. I will interrupt you, not trying to be rude, but trying to be fair to all of our speakers, and ask you to immediately conclude your comments. I ask that if you're here with a group, that you have one person speak as a spokesperson on their behalf. I ask everyone in the audience to respect that this is a business meeting. Please do not applaud, make remarks from your seats, or anything else that may distract from this meeting. So now's the time for Public Speaks Out, and I ask our first speaker to approach at this time.
Good evening. My name is Nathaniel Green, and I've been a resident of Cary now for about 2.5 years. I wanted to come to you publicly just to thank you for lots of things, actually. First, your advocacy against House Bill 2 and how we are sticking up for Cary in the wake of all that has happened to our town in terms of losing NCAA championships and things that are going to hurt us. And also, I thank you for your commitment to not pass resolutions, to not do things that are just entirely political in nature. I believe that's truly taking the high road, and I'm proud to be a citizen of a town where a council believes that and adopts that. I also wanted to specifically thank you for Jack Smith Park. It's a tremendous park. My family, even though I live about a 30-minute drive from it, my family's made a Saturday morning tradition. I have a 4-year-old and an 18-month-old. We go to swim lessons in the morning. And following that, for just about every Saturday, save this last Saturday, the weather was a little rough, we go down to Jack Smith Park and we play in the splash pad and the parks. And my daughter and my son love it. So it really is an example to me about how a park, no matter where it is in Cary, is a benefit to all of Cary. So thank you for that. I also wanted to thank you for your engagement. I know I've emailed you and have talked to you and have met with some of you in person, and I truly appreciate that. Anytime you do that, I recognize that you're taking time from your family, from your work, from your job, and I really appreciate that. The handout I passed out to you is just a Google Maps slide of the area of Cary where I live in northwestern Cary. And for one thing in particular I just wanted to highlight. You all know the projects that I've advocated for in the past, but I'm excited to tell you I met with Brad Emery, future director of the Northwest Cary YMCA, and TJ Terry today. He's the lead strategist for Cross Point Church. And a couple of the things that I think can be low investments for us and have a high impact in mainly finishing the Panther Creek Greenway, mainly to connect to the YMCA. I'm told that because of a sewer issue, Cross Point Church had to gain an easement for a sewer easement to install a future gravity sewer for the YMCA. And on that, it's quite a wide portion of land that's going to be going through one of the private properties that I think was a hindrance to building on this in the future. They've got that easement, and they're connecting to an already developer-built section of Greenway. So the section that actually we need to complete to be connected to the YMCA by the time it opens is very small. I don't think would take that much funding. Obviously, I'm not in the planning department. I don't have a figure to tell you today. But I would encourage you to consider that in the near future, just because they are opening in the spring, and that could have a huge impact for teens that get out of school early and could walk along the Greenway from Mills Park Middle, for example. Instead of causing a ruckus in the local business area, they can take the Greenway to a coffee shop that they're planning to have open late at night. So that's my time. Again, thank you for your efforts and all your time, and thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Green. Next speaker, please.
Mr. Mayor, council members, 5 years ago this month, I stood here for the first time and said, my name is Len Neiman, and I ride
C-Tran.
Started my long journey as a transit advocate, and coming here before you because of the operating hours of the time kind of precluded other people from coming and bringing other riders' concerns and issues before you. And I just want to say thank you for listening, because now the hours are extended, which has improved job opportunities and people's ability to participate. We've got modern buses now, so seniors with walkers and parents with strollers don't have to fight upstairs to get on the bus, and roll-on wheelchair accessible door-to-door vehicles. And I just want to say thank you for listening over the last 5 years, and say thank you to Ray Boylston and the transit staff for implementing the changes. And now it's time to get the rest of the county up to Cary standards. There's a referendum to fund county transit on the ballot this November, and I strongly encourage everybody to vote yes for that, because when it's done right, for every dollar you put into transit, you get $3 back in the economy. And thank you again.
Thank you, Mr. Neiman. Next speaker for Public Speaks Out.
Good evening. My name is Tim Deviney, and I represent the Heart of Cary Association, and I don't really need to speak because he just did my job. I'm here tonight on behalf of Moving Wake County Forward, the public transit campaign, and I'd like to thank the Cary Town Council for the opportunity to speak. I would like to talk to you about the reality of making the transit plan work. Wake County's commission and 10 mayors have approved a plan to expand and improve public transportation that many of you helped create. Over 65 community organizations and businesses have already endorsed the plan and transit referendum to fund it. Chambers of Commerce, realtors, environmental groups, the American Heart Association, El Pueblo, Wake Up, Wake County, and many other groups have approved this referendum moving forward. To make the transit plan a reality, we need to vote for transit in November. At the end of the ballot, you will see the opportunity to do that. I'd like to tell you 4 things that the Wake County 10-year public transit plan will do. Number 1, it will create a modern public transportation system for a modern county. It significantly expands frequent on-time bus service, including creating bus rapid transit. The service will run longer hours, up to 19 hours a day, 7 days a week. It will triple bus service in just a few short years after implementing the plan. It will connect all Wake communities and our Triangle region. Every city and town will get new and more frequent transit service. Commuter rail will run from Garner to Durham with stops in downtown Raleigh, North Carolina State University, downtown Cary, Morrisville, and the Research Triangle Park. It will get you closer to more public transportation options. 54% of all homes and 80% of all jobs will be within walking distance to transit. It will create economic development and jobs, improve public health and the environment, and ensure access for everyone to jobs and services. To get this passed, we need your vote this election to move Wake forward. A half-cent sales tax referendum to fund transit expansion will be on the ballot. Go to the end of the ballot and vote for public transportation. Tell your friends and family, #WakeForTransit, @WakeForTransit. Endorse the referendum on our website, movingwakeforward.com, and donate to make better transit a reality in Wake County. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next speaker for Public Speaks Out. Anyone else for Public Speaks Out? Seeing no one, will close Public Speaks Out and move to item 4, which is our consent agenda. For the benefit of the people watching on TV, I'm going to take a moment to review our consent agenda items. Please keep in mind that one vote approves all of these items. On the consent agenda, we have minutes, ratification of resolution for Amberley Glen subdivision plan, H.H. Hunt Wakena LLC annexation 16A17, agreement renewal between the town and Go Triangle for the regional Go Pass program, renewal agreement between the town and the Go Triangle in the regional Go Pass program to allow state government employees to utilize Go Cary fixed route services for the purpose of general commuting during NCDOT's Fortified Rebuild project. Last Mile Transfer Program Agreement with the NCDOT to provide last mile trips aboard Go Cary for rail passengers. Removal of the encroachment permit fee from the schedule of fees in the 2017 budget. Fiscal year 2016 utility reimbursement contracts update and annual reimbursements. Would council members like any of these items pulled for further discussion? If not, I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Discussion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. We now move to public hearings. Same rules apply for public hearings that apply to Public Speaks Out, with one exception. Instead of 3 minutes, you now have 5 minutes for your comments. Our first public hearing is 5.1, Gary J. Markham, trustee GJM 401k Trust Annexation 16A14. Mr. Nicholas will introduce the hearing. Council will take action on this item at a future meeting. Mr. Nicholas.
Thank you. Good evening, Council. This first request is for annexation of 1.14 acres of property located at 8204 Newcomb Street, approximately 600 feet west of the Bells Lake Road and True Love Drive intersection. The annexation also includes 0.26 acres of adjacent right-of-way. The property is located outside Cary's ETJ and currently has Wake County zoning designation of R30. The request is associated with a proposed rezoning for which you held the public hearing back on September 20th. That concludes the presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Nicholas. This time I'll open the public hearing for annexation 16A14 and would invite our first speaker forward. Anyone to speak at this public hearing? Seeing no one, will close the public hearing, and this item will return to council for action at a later meeting. We move to our second item, 5.2, Ashton Raleigh Residential LLC, Taylor Morrison of the Carolinas Incorporated, Annexation 16A16, will be introduced once again by Mr. Nicholas, and council will take action on this item tonight. Mr. Nicholas.
Thank you. This request is for annexation of 10 properties totaling approximately 80 acres. Properties are located on Ridgefield Drive and Green Level Church Road, northeast of the McCrimmon Parkway and Green Level Church Road intersection. The annexation also includes 2.2 acres of adjacent right-of-way. Properties are zoned residential 8 conditional use, and this request is associated with subdivision plan 15 SB 10, which proposes a total of 144 lots for detached dwellings.
Thank you, Mr. Nicholas. Now's the time for the public hearing for annexation 16A16, and I would invite our first speaker forward. Anyone to speak? Seeing no one, will close the public hearing. Ask council for questions or comments. If not, I would entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve annexation 16A16.
A second.
There's a motion and a second. Discussion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Our last public hearing is Town of Cary Annexation 16A12. Mr. Nicholas will introduce the hearing. Council may take action. Mr. Nicholas.
Thank you. This request is for annexation of 2 acres located at 6840 Good Hope Road, approximately 150 feet east of the intersection with NC 55 highway. Property is zoned office, research, and development, and the request is associated with a proposed public utility facility.
Thank you, Mr. Nicholas. Now it's time for the public hearing for 16A12, and I would invite our first speaker forward. Anyone to speak at this public hearing? Seeing no one, will close the public hearing. Open it up to council members for questions, comments, or a motion.
Make a motion to approve annexation petition 16A12.
There's a motion.
A second.
And a second. Discussion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Nicholas. We now move to discussion items. Our first discussion item is 6.1 Hero CAC grant funding. Captain Randall Ryan is here with us tonight. He's going to present this item, and council may take action. Captain Ryan.
Good evening, council. In 2007, council approved establishing a computer-related crime unit within the town's police department. We are the only full-time unit in Wake County. We have 3 full-time detectives and 2 part-time detectives. Our unit has averaged over 50 assigned cases a year, and we have assisted agencies across the state, nationally, and internationally with crimes involving crimes against children. Earlier this year, we were made aware of a grant opportunity being offered by the North Carolina Crimes Commission. The purpose of the grant is to provide funds for equipment and training to assist in the investigation of crimes where children are being exploited. Staff recommends council approve a resolution to receive funding for the grant, which has been awarded by the Crime Commission, and it will be providing qualified reimbursement for up to $40,000. This grant will help increase the effectiveness of our investigations, which involve internet crimes against children, and I will be glad to answer any questions you may have.
Questions for Mr. Ryan? Captain Ryan, sorry.
That's all right.
Okay. Council members, no questions or comments? Motion?
A motion that we accept and recognize the $40,000 in state grant revenue.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Discussion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Captain Ryan.
Thank you, council.
We now move to our second discussion item, acceptance of community waste reduction and recycling grant will be presented by Scott Hecht, and council may take action. Mr. Hecht.
Good evening, council. Council directed staff to explore increased recycling opportunities last October at the council priority work session, particularly the co-location of trash and recycling containers. As staff began looking into options, we came across a potential grant of $30,000. Staff applied for this grant and was recently awarded it on September 7th. This $30,000 added to the $10,000 that was approved in the FY17 budget will allow the town to purchase approximately 25 additional recycling containers. Staff recommends council authorize staff to accept $30,000 in grant funding from the 2016 Community Waste Reduction and Recycling Grant. And I would be glad to answer any questions at this time.
Questions for Mr. Hecht or comments?
I think this is a great item.
Oh, here it comes.
You know, since Sean has gotten here, he's heard the expression "the Cary way," and I know he's been asking a lot of people, what exactly is this Cary Way? And to me, this is one thing that explains what the Cary Way is. This idea was brought forward a long while ago by a brilliant group of citizens, our Environmental Advisory Board. We have many brilliant citizens in town, but the Environmental Advisory Board brought this forward, passed it on to the staff, like you said, last October, and the staff implemented it, and not just in a normal fashion. They looked for a creative way to do this, found a grant, wrote a grant in the right fashion that it got accepted and got approved, and come back to it. So I think the Cary Way is brilliant citizens coming up with ideas that our expert creative staff then can implement. And that happens over and over again. I just thought this is one example of that. So I'm very happy to see this come back to us. And if I may, I'd make motion to approve or accept the $30,000 in grant funding from the 2016 Community Waste Recycling Grant.
Second.
Second.
There's a motion and a couple of seconds. Discussion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Hecht. Now move to our third discussion item, amendment of resolution delegating authority to award, approve, and execute contracts over other instruments. Chief Godwin will present the item, and council may take action. Mr. Godwin. Chief Godwin.
Good evening, council. I have before you tonight the feel-good item of the evening. You're going to feel so good at the end of this. I'd like to invite Officer Phil Humphrey and K-9 Robbie to join us on the floor here.
Oh, yeah.
Oh. That's my guy.
Very good. No pressure.
So glad I left that go.
In 2005, the Cary Police Department started our first K-9 team with Officer Jeremy Bergen and K-9 Max. Since then, the program has expanded to include 3 full-time K-9 teams. An unfortunate reality with K-9s is that they do age out of service, generally in about 6 to 7 years on average. Pursuant to the general statutes, when that happens, the K-9 is handled as a piece of town property and must be sold. In the most recent legislative session, the General Assembly passed a law which authorizes a municipality to transfer ownership of a K-9 to the handler when the animal is ready to retire. In order to take advantage of this new law, thus ensuring an easy transition of the K-9 from consideration as a piece of town equipment to a member of the handler's family, an amendment is proposed to Council's resolution delegating authority to award, approve, and execute contracts and other instruments, which delegates authority to declare the K-9 no longer needed for public service to the police chief or an assistant chief, and authorizes them to transfer and convey the animal pursuant to a contract that is consistent with the law and approved by the town manager. As a physical representation of this issue, we have invited the K-9 team of Phil Humphreys and Robbie to be present tonight. K-9 Robbie came to us from the Czech Republic in 2011. He has served us faithfully for over 5 years, but due to some developing hip issues, he is due to retire later this year once Officer Humphreys finishes training Robbie's replacement, which he is currently doing. With the passing of this resolution, we can ensure that K-9 Robbie is able to live out his life as a member of Officer Humphrey's family. Staff recommends that Council approve the attached revised resolution delegating authority to award, approve, and execute contracts and other instruments, and I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
So if it's my understanding, and I think I'm correct on this, the legislator who's one of the ones that introduced this was former Cary Council member Gail Adcock. Was that correct?
That is correct, Mayor.
Yeah. Just thought I ought to throw that out there. It's a great thing, and their family, I can't imagine them being thought of as property, so I'm glad they're with you. So I don't see any problem with this resolution.
I'd like to make a motion to adopt this resolution delegating authority to award, approve, and execute contracts with other instruments to let the dogs go with their handler.
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you for your service, Rob.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Just like at Jack Smith Park.
We now move to our fourth discussion item, fiscal year 2017 street improvement projects presented by Sammy Wood. Council may take action. Mr. Wood.
Thank you. Good evening, Council. Staff has prepared a priority list of streets to be included in the FY 2017 Street Improvements Project. The priority list is based on the results of the pavement condition survey prepared by AECOM Technical Services of North Carolina, known as AECOM. Staff is recommending Council approve the street list in tables A, B, C, and D for the FY 2017 Street Improvements Projects and provide staff with the flexibility to make reasonable revisions to the list. As we can see here, through Street Improvements Program, we have been able to keep the majority of the roads in good condition and improve streets in poor condition. By investing in streets before they reach a critical state of maintenance, we are able to bring more streets into good condition at a lower unit cost. Every dollar spent on preventative maintenance extends the service life of the street and defers spending additional money in the future. We continuously look for ways to improve customer service through the town of Cary. With feedback from our citizens and after careful consideration, staff is recommending the neighborhood approach mentioned in the staff report that will allow us to continue bringing the poorest streets into excellent condition and prevent re-entering the same neighborhoods year after year. Thank you, Council.
Thank you, Mr. Wood. One of the things I think is important to understand, and please correct me if I'm wrong, is most of the major streets are the responsibility of the North Carolina Department of Transportation, and we're looking after our responsibility and theirs sometimes, but mostly our responsibility of neighborhood streets and smaller streets which are on this list. This is a huge list.
Yes.
We're also doing it in a proactive manner
exactly.
that addresses problems before they become bigger problems and therefore more expensive. And I think that's something that the town has always done very well.
Yes. Good point. Okay. Other questions or comments or motion?
Make a motion to approve staff recommendation.
Second. Motion and a second. Discussion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Ms. Wood. Thank you. We now move to our fifth item, item 5.5, request for utility system infrastructure reimbursement for sanitary sewer facilities serving the Providence at Yates Pond and Woodall subdivisions. Council tabled this on August 25th, 2016, and before staff will present this item, council will need to remove this item from the table. So is there a motion to remove this item from the table?
So moved. Or second.
There's a motion and a second. Discussion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Is off the table. Mr. Brown.
Good evening, Council. With this item, staff recommends that Council approve entering into a developer-funded reimbursement contract with the developers of the Providence at Yates Pond and Woodhall subdivisions. Since you last saw this item, staff and the developers have worked closely together and have developed a recommendation that is agreeable to both parties. So with that, we recommend that this agreement include a fee credit only reimbursement to these developers for up to $880,210, which is anticipated to be less than their total fee liability for these developments, and that only be offered through fee credits with no cash reimbursement included, and that in any case the fee credits would not exceed the actual construction cost of the pump station and force main that they'll be constructing. And with that, I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Questions, comments, or a motion?
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the request for sewer utility infrastructure reimbursement for sanitary sewer facilities serving the Providence and Yates Pond and Woodhall subdivisions.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Brown. We now move to a council-initiated item, item 6.6. New award in Cary. Per council's operation procedure, council as a whole may take one of the following actions: discuss this issue, and take action at the meeting if no staff or public input is requested. Direct staff to return for more information in a future meeting and decide not to pursue the council-initiated request. The council-initiated request was introduced by Mrs. Robinson, so I'll turn it over to her to introduce the item.
Okay, thank you so much. Over the years, we've talked about things that we can do to foster a sense of community among our stakeholders, not just our citizens, but our businesses as well. Many years ago, I was driving by, I guess maybe 3 or 4 years ago, I was driving by Stone School Supply, and I just thought that building was just a superior construction. They did such a beautiful job designing it and building it, and it really enhanced the area in which it's built. And I thought, we really ought to be recognizing some of these investments that go into our community, the builders, the developers, the business owners, who go the extra mile to really put something into the community that we can all be proud of. And so I started thinking at that time we ought to have some type of award granted from the council to a stakeholder each year that does a particularly great job in development or building. Since then, I learned about a project in Western Cary that has gotten tremendous recognition for its high environmental standards. Not only did they adhere to the environmental standards that we had in place, but they went the extra mile and put in other elements that really enhanced it. And I thought that, again, would be another great example of a community or a development that deserves recognition, because they, unlike some parties who want to tell us why we shouldn't have the ordinances that we have or want to skirt the ordinances that we have for environmental standards, they embraced them and they did more with it. And so I felt like it would be appropriate for our council to consider having an award that we give out each year to a builder or a developer that has put something in the ground that we can be very, very proud of. And so I'm making a recommendation to the council that we start that award.
Okay, I was the second on this, and I think it's an excellent idea, and I would love to get the staff feedback. I can't imagine, but I could be wrong, the staff expense. I don't know if it would be a big time grab or anything from staff. The only question is who makes the decision on the award. You know,
well, I think we do. I think
yeah.
it's the council that makes the decision on the award, and I think that it would be incumbent upon us to bring the different projects that we think are worthy back to the council for us to consider and say these stood out this year as being superior projects.
And that's the part that bothers me, is that the council is involved with the criteria and selection of finalists. If we were to pursue something like this, I would like it to be done by our apolitical town staff that has a set list of criteria that they maybe could then grade the projects on and then bring back to council a list of finalists that the council then can then select. Not that I have this concern with this council, but I would hate for this ultimately over the years turn into reward your best developer friends project.
I think that's fair. I think that's a fair point. I wouldn't have any concern with this council, but
Well, I agree. You know, much like the way the town's Hometown Spirit Award is managed and handled. My concern would be what is the demand on staff time, who tracks and manages the criteria and those kinds of things, so that I will support moving this forward to get more information, but that's kind of the information I want back.
That's reasonable.
What's the implication to staff resources, how they would track this, those kinds of things. I agree with you that, yes, the council should probably be the one that makes the decision, but staff be the one that brings us back to finalists.
I have a thought that, and it goes back to some years, and I can't remember the movie years, but when there's two great movies in one year, and there's a lousy movie the next year that wins an Academy Award. And it's like, why will we limit it to one when maybe we have a criteria that we recommend for like gold medal winners or some sort of high?
LEED certification.
Yeah, something that's not just one, because I would hate that we put we've got two great things one year, and it's like, well, they're both great. They both deserve to win, and maybe there's not a need to decide between them. And so maybe there's a threshold that the staff would do, and we have gold medal winners, and we present two one year, and maybe we have one year we present zero.
The only thing
The
I would
threshold.
add to that is if we're not talking about something being built open that year, then that excellent one that was in the same year could roll over to the next year and be considered. Kind of like
I'm not opposed to 2, 3, or whatever getting the award.
I'm not either.
As long as it's done in an apolitical manner.
Right.
I mean,
Okay.
even with the Hometown Spirit Award, we had one year where we had two people that won. You know, they were both such awesome citizens that they couldn't pick one or the other. So.
But I also don't want it to be a standard that's just a given, like,
Right,
okay,
right.
I put in the extra 10 feet of greenway, so now I get this award.
Right.
I want it to be something that
Wow.
go wow. Yeah.
Above and beyond, yeah.
Now, if we direct staff to do this, I think all these things are things that they're going to be considering, and they're all very good points. I would like to add a Part B to this, if I may, assuming we're going to be directing the staff to do this. 6 years ago, when you all adopted the Historic Preservation Master Plan, one of the recommended actions in there was to establish an award for historic preservation to a developer, a builder, a property owner who perhaps has restored a historic property or maybe has saved a property from destruction. And if that's already been approved as a recommended action, we never took took it further than that. But if we're going to be looking into asking the staff to look into developing an award, I'm wondering if we can also have them look at this, because the process may be similar in a lot of ways. And we can check that item off of our historic preservation list of recommended actions. So I didn't know if that was acceptable.
I think it's very worthwhile. I think all the recommendations people have come forward with are great.
Yeah, and I like the whole idea of consistency, right? We talk about that at this table all the time. So whatever the consistent criteria might be, of course, they'd be different for historic preservation, but
two separate things.
But again, that apolitical nature associated with some sort of scoring mechanism, I think staff's, the best to do that for us.
So would you like to make a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we direct staff to bring back information for us about the logistics of having both like a high-quality development builder award and a Cary Preservation Award.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Under discussion, I'll just ask our town manager if he's got all the information he needs from this to go to his staff and get back information. Okay. Any other comments? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. We now move to item 6.6, council-initiated item, TEFRA approval, Sears Stone 2016. Per council's operating procedure, the council as a whole may take one of the following actions: discuss the item, take action at the meeting if no staff or public input is required, direct staff to return with more information, or decide not to pursue it. This item was presented to council members as a request to help with financing or to get financial assistance for Sears Stone. My understanding is they're required in their application process to hold a public hearing. At one time, the county used to hold public hearings for these type items, and counties no longer do that, or our county no longer does that, and they ask that municipalities do that. So Sears Stone has asked us to hold a public hearing, and time is of the essence, and they would have to hold it at our next council meeting later in October. I know that our legal department has investigated this at great length, and there's very minimal risk, if any, and I'll just ask for confirmation or comment from our town attorney.
That's true, Mayor. The council would simply be holding the public hearing and adopting a resolution, and the applicant would provide an indemnification for the town in the event some action were to be brought challenging the town's action. But our bound council and finance department have looked at it, and it's not putting any of the town's credit on the line. It's simply performing a perfunctory task of holding the public hearing.
Okay, Ms. France, you were the second. Do you have anything to add?
Not much, except that this is not the first time we have done this. We actually did it for a school a while back, too. So, unfortunately, the county no longer does it, and so we'll step in and fill that role.
And that brings up another point. We might want to consider a policy or procedures to handle these types of requests in the future. Maybe something that we might discuss at a later date. I see Mr. Stiegel writing things down, so we might want to discuss this later. So when we get these, we'll have a better process to get to these very quick. Any other comments or discussion? If not, I would entertain a motion.
I just have one comment that when we look at potentially a policy around this, I know it's been somewhat hearsay around whether or not the county actually does these, because I've actually heard on both sides that the county does do it sometimes and they don't do it. Other times it depends on the length of their meeting schedule.
Oh.
So I would, whatever that investigation may come out. I know the last time this came before us was for school, and the reason they couldn't get on this, get the Wake County to do it was because of a scheduling conflict.
Okay.
So I think I've heard both.
Okay.
That they don't do them, and I've also heard that they will do them if there's enough time. So it'd be nice to know what the real message is.
Okay. And so the motion would need to call for a public hearing on October the 27th.
That's correct.
Okay. Is there a motion? Okay. There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
And a second. Further discussion. All in favor of this motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries unanimously. Okay, we move to 6.8, council-initiated item for consideration of paid parental leave for town employees per council's operation procedure. We have one of three decisions to make. Send it to staff and ask for more information, or take action if there's no staff or public input needed, or decide not to pursue it at all. Mrs. Bush, this is your item. I'll let you introduce it.
Thank you. So just to relay what the actual pink slip item request is, that I'd like to direct staff through this council, of course, to provide information and considerations for us to potentially provide paid parental leave for Town of Cary employees. And I'd like, along with that, is staff to investigate the options, identify the relevant components, cost, implementation, potential policy guidelines, et cetera, any downsides, of course, and provide a staff report to the council. Let me give a little bit of reasoning why I'm bringing this forward for council. You know, our town staff are absolutely consummate professionals. They're committed to the town. We saw this with the last hurricane. I can't tell you how many great emails we got for public works staff who took down trees and helped people move trees off of blocked intersections. They go above and beyond in every stretch of the imagination. And at the town, we are committed to being one of the best places to work, too. We're a 1,200 person, over a 1,200 person organization. But not just in the public sector, but also in comparison to the many innovative companies that we have here in Cary. So finding ways to entice workers to come and work at the town and stay and grow with us is one of the best ways to retain employees and also to provide great services for them. And one of the things we can do to do that is to enhance services by adding a paid parental leave policy to our portfolio. Just as an example, these policies, of course, have grown in popularity across the U.S., and we're one of the U.S. is one of the few countries, actually I think we're the only country, developed country, that doesn't have a mandated paid parental leave policy, as many do. And studies have shown that paid leave benefits not only children, of course, and families, but actually the employer, because people come back connected to their children and ready to work. And offering a suggestion to start with might be offering up to 6 weeks of paid parental leave to women, men, same-sex couples that have been employed by the town for at least 1 year, or who add a new member to their family through either birth, adoption, or foster program. And honestly, I believe it'd be a huge step in helping families and demonstrating that we're a family-friendly place to work, like so many of the innovative companies in Cary. So I'll let Ms. Robinson comment if she'd like to, as well as being one of the seconds on this.
Yeah, and thank you. Lori did the real bulk of the work on looking into this, and I'm glad that she did. I wasn't aware that we didn't have some type of paid leave for people who've had a child. And as many of you know who are parents, it's when you work and taking care of your children is the hardest element. It's making sure that they're safe, that they're cared for properly, and it's particularly stressful, I think, right when you add your child and you're getting adjusted to having a new member in the family. So I think it's a very compassionate thing, and I think it's a very responsible thing for corporations and organizations to provide. I'm not 100% sure that Lori and I are simpatico about the father leave. I really think that and it's hard to distinguish, I don't know how you do this, and maybe staff has experience in this, but if it's the father who's the stay-at-home parent, or if there's only one parent that can stay at home, then I get it. But it does seem excessive if you have a wife who stays home for 6 weeks with her company and the husband staying home for 6 weeks with his company. That's where it kind of feels like maybe we've gone too far. But I don't know how to work that, because historically it was always the woman who stayed home with the children, but that's not the case anymore. There are many, many instances where the wife immediately goes back to work and the husband stays home as the caregiver, and he's the guy who makes sure that the child is to daycare and whatnot after that. So I don't know how to handle this, and since I'm not an expert in these matters, I'd like to hear staff weigh in on the best approaches. But I'm open to anything, and I'm just glad that Lori brought this forward, because I think it is a good thing for our community.
And I think it's an excellent idea, too. My concern is procedure process. Mm-hmm. I feel that this is operational. I feel that this is part of an HR package. And then I ask my question, why are we involved in HR packages? We shouldn't be involved in town operations. That belongs to the guy at the end of the table. And so why are we doing this? That's my only question. So.
And I would just say that I do think we have a responsibility to set the culture for our town. We do have a big responsibility. Maybe I'm wrong, but manager can tell us.
Well, I like the culture you created, so I wanted to come. I do think that both parties play a role. The council creates the conditions, the tone of excellence, as you've heard me say before, and the town manager and staff provide details on how to implement that. I think overall, the council goal is to, at least as I understand it, to attract and retain the best and the brightest employees, and certainly the overall compensation and retention package has to be consistent with that. Do you have to have every element to accomplish that? No. Do you have to have this element? Maybe not. But I think that's where our research can come in handy.
Yeah, some things I'd like, I'm not opposed to moving this forward for staff investigation to come back to us with, I would like to see staff come back actually with a few different options for us to select from, not just one, take it or leave it. But I'd like to understand the history in the town, how many employees over the years have, had a child, and so what would a family leave, what would the cost to that be to the taxpayers? I'd like to know more about what the private sector does, especially here in Cary and around the area, what employers provide it, what don't. Maybe what employers choose to provide something else that we don't provide instead. I'd also like to possibly have staff look at something similar to what we did with shared leave. With the, the town employee gets sick or injured or, has a really terrible illness that they're out for a long time, town employees can donate some of their time to that. Can something like that work in this case? Is it too many people? I don't know. So at least look at it. 6 weeks to me might be a little bit much to start with. I'd like staff to possibly maybe be the ones to come back with that number. I can tell you my wife, after having a baby, 3 days later, she's at work. But that's what she does. It's always shocked me, but that's what she does. And at the end of the day, and I'm not looking for the answer to this question now or anybody else to answer it for me right now, but having a child is 99% of the time a personal choice. I don't know that taxpayers should be financially responsible for somebody else's personal choice. So that's something I'm going to want help with as we discuss this in the future.
I'm kind of throw another angle in there because knowing that my wife is a nurse, administers mostly to the fastest growing quintile, which is the 80-plus quintile, is that we call it parental leave, and maybe to also have a look at a family leave, because at some point there's people taking care of an aging parent, that there's some things that go on that maybe they've used up their vacation, maybe they've used up sick leave. Is there a somewhere along the way a potential of a week or two or something that goes in with that to for taking care of, I think we're going to see more of that as we encourage people to retire here. And we fund things like Searstone. We keep having things. So I'm just wondering how that plays in. I think it's part of what some companies do. There's also a family leave, not just a parental leave.
Well, there's a Family Medical Leave Act, of course, that gives anyone the opportunity, based on their need, to take 12 weeks of unpaid, up to 12 weeks of unpaid.
That's right, unpaid.
If that's your interest, I would suggest you pink slip that item for, elder care or something else. I'd really like to focus this one on parental, and then have different policies if we want to talk about them. I'd hate for it to be a boil the ocean for every type of leave, because then we could get into medical leave and all kinds of leave.
Vacation leave?
Vacation. And just to, not to solve the problem here, but just to answer your questions, SAS provides 6 weeks paid leave. MetLife offers 20 weeks of paid leave. The city of Greensboro offers 6 weeks. Durham County offers 12 weeks. Atlanta, St. Petersburg offers 6 weeks. City of Durham offers 6 weeks. And Wake County is currently considering 6 weeks. So this is something moving forward that I think would certainly has a momentum around it. And I think, I agree with absolutely everyone's concerns. And that's why I'm thinking, this is really something better handled by HR and staff to come back to us with some options as well.
Mr. Smith?
Yeah. Well, as a certified comp and benefits specialist, I got out of that business because I really didn't like it. So I think the town manager hit on something important. We've always looked at the whole package is how do we remain competitive. When I got on, we changed the entire way we handle compensation. We went to basically the private sector market. We got rid of cost of living adjustments. We got rid of entitlements. We added a pay for performance. We added a merit base. And we analyzed every job so that it was competitive in the market. And we were on a path where we used to do, I think, a third of the jobs every year, and we would adjust them, the pay ranges, so that we remain competitive. So I think Sean was on to something when he said, what we have to do is continually look at the whole package and how do we remain competitive, and not just with the public sector. I think what we stand out is because we took a leap back in the late 80s, early 90s to say we're going to act like we're a private sector entity and we're going to be competitive so we get the best and brightest. I think you need to look at turnover. I think you got to look at a whole bunch of things, and part of that is the whole changing dynamic where we're going to have the tsunami of retirees. We're going to be looking at all new employees, different types of expectations, and so forth. So I think you're on to something when you talk about the paid parental leave. But I do think it's a bigger picture also, and I don't know exactly what we should be directing, but I do think it's time to look at our entire package. How, are we being competitive? Are we there? And if there are things that are holding us back from staying competitive to the market, like paid parental leave, I think that's the wise thing to do. It's the investment in our employees. So I'm not disagreeing with you, but I'm just saying that as Sean said, we've got to look at the whole package, and there are pieces that we have. There's a lot of companies that are doing this, but guess what? They're taking away other things too. It isn't always where they keep adding on. They're shifting all the ingredients of their benefit package. used to be that they did a lot of shared matching funds for retirement. Some are shifting away from that. People aren't staying in jobs. There's a whole lot of things to look at, and more than likely, with the need we're going to have for employees in the future, we need to address this component of it. So, I'm not disagreeing that we have the staff do it, but my hope is that we may not be able to address all the other things like elder care and everything else, but when I see this thing come back, I want to see where we're competitive and where we're not. I think we're kind of on the same page here. I think based on our looking at every job, looking at 25% of the jobs every year, we're very competitive in the stick to the knitting, the pay. But I think this screams that it's time to look at our entire benefit package, and are there things that maybe aren't as attractive anymore to the workforce? I don't know. That's what I want.
Other comments, or are we ready for a motion?
Mr. Mayor?
Oh, please.
Maybe to help provide some clarity. What we could do, I think Councilmember Smith is right. There are some things that I've identified in conjunction with the staff that merit additional consideration at some point. But as to not hold back the complete analysis of this, what we could do is provide an analysis with some alternatives, Councilmember France had indicated, and also identify a couple other topics, but not fully develop those as to not hold this item back for future work that could be done over a period of time. That way we can be in the balcony and the dance floor at the same time.
Sounds good to me.
So I'll make a motion that we ask staff to provide information and considerations for us to potentially provide paid parental leave policy for the town of Cary employees, including providing information mentioned by Councilmember France around the cost, implementation, history, potential policy guidelines, any downsides, and I forgot what else you said. Private sector comparisons. Did I get them?
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. Discussion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. That completes all the items on the agenda. If there's no closed session, which there isn't, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
There's a motion.
Second.
And a second. Discussion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you.
This has been a production of Cary TV. Visit the Town of Cary's website at townofcary.org.